for acknowledging the wonderful apparel that the people of this republic provided.
The people of which republic?
Yes.
Is that how it works? Anyway, we've come back from a weekend of lots of activity.
Yeah.
So we'll recap the news file in a moment. But before that, let's do our Drive Safe campaign.
And it's brought to us by Joe News and Multimedia Group, supported by Imperial General Assurance, solid protection. Please avoid all distractions. Keep both eyes on the road and hands on the steering wheel. Please drive safe.
Okay, let's learn how to say it right. And Ray, I think you like today's. It's brought to us by Kingdom Books. At Kingdom, quality and affordability are their hallmarks.
Something must be done.
You say either. I say either.
It's a brand new week, which is a good time to learn a new uncommon word. Here's one: Balter. 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 To dance clumsily without any rhythm, but usually with a lot of pleasure. As in, Raymond Acquah has no understanding of rhythm whatsoever. When music is played, he just balters like a drunken goat. Yes, perfect example. Raymond, I'm in the studio. Come and beat me. On second thoughts, how can you beat me when you can't even move to the beat? See what I did there? Yeah. Bolter.
You're doing papa.
Don't mind. All right, before we do the news review, brought to us by Enterprise Insurance, Woody Motor Promotion, Enterprise Your Advantage. Newsfile was interesting over the weekend.
Yeah.
Bright Simmons and co had a thing or two to say about this whole situation with our debt and, the economy. Let's hear some snippets from Saturday's show.
Even if we get Eurobond relief about 50%, we still need about 2.5 and get the IMF money. We still need about $2.5 billion from somewhere. Most likely, this money must come from fiscal adjustment, cutting expenditure. The tax performance is so far not doing well. We have got this chain of crisis where we change from fiscal crisis, that becomes a debt crisis. Then in time, it becomes a power crisis. Then it changes to a fiscal crisis. And it's been going on and on and on. This particular crisis should not be allowed to mutate. We must fix it at the core and we must fix it at the root.
Government took us for granted and we allowed it. So we didn't negotiate from position of strength. So we couldn't push government to get sufficient information. Government kept so much to its chest. And you see it showing up here. There is no way Ghana can achieve the debt sustainability cutoff of 55% in present value terms by 2028. It's impossible. We cannot. Let's not deceive ourselves. And I think that, and here, I will not put the blame solely on government. I think the IMF itself ought to contextualize their framework. By 2028, that will be too difficult for us.
Indeed, the posture of this government does not suggest that they even appreciate what they have put people through. The finance minister was in parliament asking us to rejoice in the Lord for bringing us to this juncture. It means that he, Alhaji Bawumia, who is supposed to be the head of our economic management team and the president, have buried themselves in a delusional bubble. They don't appreciate what they have done. Indeed, if we were a country where honor was an important factor in our national lives, these people would have been long gone. Alhaji Bawumia would have left, or he would have been fired as head of the economic management team. The finance minister would have been fired. Indeed, it will not be far-fetched to even suggest that the president himself would have resigned for ensuring or supervising such an economic catastrophe.
In the memorandum that we put out, we stated in it that once the DDE was in the process, we could not be settling maturities until we are fully completed. So we want to fully assure all bondholders who have due maturities that they are going to be settled ASAP. By the grace of God, we have come to the end of the process. And once settlement is done, all the due maturities will be paid in the shortest possible time. So it's been already communicated, except that I think it has not been clear to bondholders. And government has already announced about 36 measures in the 2023 budget on expenditure measures that will seek to bring down expenditures going forward. But I think beyond that, people want to see much more commitment on the part of government. Going forward, those are cabinet policy directions that will be announced very soon as part of our program. So we also want to assure that government has their eyes on it.
Bright Simmons, Professor Bokpin, Felix Kwachu-Fusu, and John Kuma.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, some of the things we have said, and there is something that consistently jumps at me in all of this conversation. I agree perfectly that government was not very transparent right from the beginning, and we saw that coming right from this so-called post-COVID recovery program, which was put together, or there's supposed to be a document like that. We asked for it, we're never given. Through to the times and say, oh, which deal are you discussing with the IMF? Can we know? Up to date, we have some information on the staff level agreement. So we went into the domestic debt exchange program. I think and people have been using the Jamaican example, that Jamaicans were able to extract a lot of reform and change and commitment from their leadership when it comes to not repeating the same mistake. We are here, but I'm not sure it's too late, but we have not done enough of that. Also because it's almost like a one-man show in this case. When we push, we only get, we have not gotten there yet. And yet government moves on to the next thing. And only exerts commitment from the people. And if sometimes the commitment will not work, then they will threaten you with the economy will collapse. So you need to do your bit to make sure that it works. And it's true that government has not committed enough. Even in the last statement that we saw, this element of government is considering the other expenditure measures that have been raised in times past.
Considering.
Yeah. And that's the language they use all through. One of the examples you know is that in the real budget, when they issue the budget, the side of revenue and the things you're supposed to get from revenue, all the revenue measures, the fresh ones, including the taxes, they could tell us how much they're likely to raise in the process. When it came to the things they would do personally as an institution or as government, cut back, they couldn't estimate that. It's the same thing that happened last year. So it tells you a certain trend. If it comes to the people, we can exert enough commitment from them. But when it comes to those of us leading, we do not really need to show you that we are committed to the process. And that's very worrying.
Yeah, I mean, it's a problem that every time it comes up, we are told that they are considering it. How long does it take to consider what expenditure to cut? The president has had opportunities when he did I can't even call it a reshuffle, when he replaced some ministers and did a bit of movement on the chessboard. He actually created more portfolios by the end of it. So, I mean, can we really say that they are considering it? Because that was an opportunity. It passed by. So is it that he hadn't yet figured out how to reduce the size of his government at that time? So he had to just go ahead and replace people and create new portfolios that didn't exist before? Is that, what the only thing he could do? So where is the consideration? They're considering it, Where is it happening? Who is doing the consideration? And how are we going to see the outcome of it? And why is it taking so long? What is so hard?
Again, I've never heard the president say so. It's only the finance minister when they issue some of these statements to batter people for a new change or a new tax or whatever they want to introduce coming up next. That is what they say. But I've never heard the president in all of his rounds saying that I'm going to cut back this, I'm going to reduce that, I'm going to make the other commitment here and there to make sure this works out. Because the buck stops with him anyway.
I mean, I'm happy to be corrected if I'm wrong. But in my recollection, the last time I heard the president talk about size of government was when he appointed the over 100 ministers and said, wait and see
the impact.
Whether that's the last time I remember hearing him talk about
I need a big government
the size of government. So what's going on?
I'm surprised you are actually looking forward to that, a reduction in the size of government, because we've seen new appointments. In fact, Parliament will begin the vetting. The NDC has issued a statement asking its members not to approve the nominees. There are like 4 new faces, actually. Yeah. We didn't see deputies being pushed up, but instead we've seen new people coming in.
Well, some deputies were moved around for other positions, but we've also got new faces, like you said. And some argue that the number remains the same.
Largely.
Yes, that's just because perhaps maybe one deputy or the other was not replaced. But new portfolios were created. So that means the president actually thinks that new ministerial positions are needed.
Like Minister of State at the
Finance Ministry.
Yes, and Minister of State at the local government ministry.
That's
Indeed.
a new one.
Yes.
So he believes that new positions are needed, but he doesn't quite believe that any of the old ministries should be merged together. He doesn't believe that any of the ministers currently in office, should be moved or reshuffled. No.
But remember, the president had argued before that the problem the country faces is huge, and he needed the numbers to deal with the.
Like I said,
with
that's the
state
last time we
situation.
heard him talk about size of government.
maybe he
and that
still
was at the
stands by it.
beginning of his first tenure.
In any case, he reduced that number. So that justification, I'm not sure is going to make it again, because when coming into the second term, he actually reduced the number. You recall the likes of us, Acquah every year, the Ministry for Monitoring and Evaluation. Those other ministries were all basically made departments at the office of the president, which to me made sense anyway. But the kind of request that's being made, and it says, okay, if you are not exacting any commitment from the people, if you are not insisting that they should tighten their belts because they need to pay up more.
If you are not broke.
Yes, it's okay. If you are riding, fine. But in our current situation, something must give. And it appears we are speaking to a wall. Anyway.
All right, what else is in the papers this
Now,
morning?
the Daily Graphic is reporting this morning, government to support Achu's burial. And this is what the vice president said last night when the personnel of the Ghana forces carrying the remains of Christian Achu and also the remains arrived at the Kotoka International Airport. We brought you very live coverage of a very wonderful. I mean, it's a terrible story. It's how I see this. I'm not really a football person, but how I see this is how any Ghanaian who traveled somewhere seeking to make a living, raise some money for family and for the other things your ambitions want to drive you, and you struggling to, you see the building you are within collapsing, you are struggling to get out of the building or trying to do something to save your lives, and the last prayers you'll be having, and your hopes of surviving, and whether you survive a day, 2 or 3, I mean, all
dwindling,
yes,
as time goes on.
By the second, and you can feel it, that's a very excruciating pain. Well, our thoughts are with the family, actually.
Absolutely, and we see tributes pouring in from the English clubs as well. Newcastle, Chelsea, from the Premier League itself.
And players were celebrating his life across the world throughout.
Beyond
the
that,
weekend.
his philanthropic work has also been recognized, and I see that a lot on social media. I mean, I did not know that about him, but a lot more people come out saying that, see, he helped me one way or the other. He actually helped our team, he helped this group, and perhaps we should all know that when we are no more, these are some of the things people will remember as well.
So I was thinking
not the big
deeply
cast we
about
bought for
that.
ourselves,
what will
really.
people remember me for?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, may he rest in peace. We continue to mourn with his family because he was one of our favorite sons, wasn't he?
Absolutely. Well, the Ghanaian Times newspaper also has, this headline: Nation grieves for Christian Achu as remains arrive home for burial. And then 4 soldiers, 1 immigration officer, 8 fake security personnel grabbed for extorting monies from minors. We've been worried recently about the uniforms by civilians, but now we actually grab 4 real soldiers alleged to be involved in this, and then 1 immigration officer. The immigration service has issued a statement. They say they're looking into this matter. They are the person has been identified, and that he's assisting with the investigations as well. We need some hardcore punishment for these people to serve as a deterrent.
Now, the BNFT is reporting this morning that inflation to peak in Q1 and end the year at 19.5. IMF induced austerity to drive down growth to 2.3%. This is what the report is saying, that when we get the IMF program, hopefully next month or the following month, we will be having growth descending to 2.3% this year. So the austerity, CM moments we are talking about here will come into full force. And perhaps that's going to leave us into a new year with we stabilizing and moving on to the next few years. That's the Business and Financial Times. Now, there is one about Sukasa Properties to build 2,000 affordable homes in 2023. And they have unveiled a certain community structure too. So there's another one about Newmont Achim investing 1.4 million in youth training. And that's also on the front page of the BNFT this morning.
The Daily Guide, but before I go into the Daily Guide, I think I missed a story. I've always been a very objective person. Adriana Panish hats. This is on the back page of the Times.
Adriana what?
Adriana Panish hats in Accra. We lost, but you lose some, you win some. Kotoko.
You lost at home
You
to
guys,
Adriana.
yeah, we lost at home. That's a bit painful, but
A bit.
yeah.
You
We'll
lost
pick
at
up.
home to Adriana.
We shall be back.
You lost at home to
Kotoko
Adriana.
drew, by the way. It's
Why
like
are
they
you
won.
Is that also in the? Is
That's
that
very
also in the
objective,
story?
of course.
Yeah,
And she prefaced that
They
with,
lost
I'm a very
last
objective
week.
person.
Didn't they lose last week?
Kotoko drew. But do you think
Such is
losing
life.
is the same as
Such
drawing?
is life. You lose, you get up, you move.
The way I
you
give yourself
draw,
motivation,
and-
it's very interesting. though.
And at the moment, you have lost.
Oh, we've lost, but we are not down. All right, the Daily Guide newspaper.
Yes.
Achu's body arrives. KNUST student forced to his death. This is something that happened on Friday, and the circumstance is actually not clear. There are reports that this boy, who's a level 200 student, was moving from the balcony of his room to another person's room, and then he slipped and fell. There's another report that says there was some sort of illegal activity, and so there was a threat that police personnel were going to be called. So when there was a knock on the door, he felt, okay, there were people coming after him, so he tried to run through the balcony and get into somebody else's room, and then he slipped. But I guess the bottom line is he slipped from the 3rd floor of this hostel and fell to his death. Very, very sad. Really disturbing there.
Let's hope an investigation can reveal, what resulted in that.
Absolutely. Well, for those of us who are waiting for fuel prices to go down, there's an update. It says an oil tanker carrying 40,000 metric tons of petroleum products under the government's flagship Gold for Oil policy has docked at the Tema port. Vessel is awaiting discharge as the second batch petroleum product to be delivered under the new deal.
How much did we get in the first one?
40,
Around
41. But then they say there's another 35 that's expected in the country in the coming days.
I think we need more, right?
The deputy
in
minister,
order to see the
yes,
impact.
Ejapamesa told George Riafe that we should expect this month 120,000.
Okay.
So that really, because the 40,000 is like 15% of our monthly consumption. So hopefully, when we get 120,000, that might be bigger and that might make enough impact than the previous ones here.
Okay. All right, shall we go online?
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
the online review is brought to us this morning by Zenith Bank in your best interest and Goyle Good Energy.
So Goyle accept Momo. Remember, you can Momo it at Goyle. You can also use your bank card, all bank cards really, to buy fuel at Goyle. So drive to the nearest Goyle station now, buy your fuel and pay by Momo bank card or Goyle Go card. Goyle Good Energy, Goyle. Yeah, yedim.
And why are you not part of the Zenith Bank Easy Banking family yet? You need to download the Z Mobile Ghana app, log on to their individual or corporate internet banking platforms, or just dial *966# to enjoy seamless banking on the go. You can make transfers, top up airtime, pay bills, pay for goods and services, and so much more. Join the Easy Banking family and experience easy banking with Zenith Bank in your best interest. All right, NDC directs minority to reject latest ministerial appointments. That'll be interesting. You see, there's something wrong with the way we approach these exercises. Okay, I don't know if a blanket policy is the right thing. Okay, do we not need an agric minister? Is that what we're saying? So should we not be taking them on a case-by-case basis and deciding which ones, based on their performance in the vetting, which ones to approve and which ones not to? Is that not what we should be doing? Anyway, all right. CityNewsroom.com says, don't approve Akufo-Addo's new ministerial nominees, NDC to minority. We've seen that again. So again, it's self-serving, not nation-serving. All right. CNN has this. After nearly 1 year of war, how Ukraine defied the odds and may still defeat Russia, according to Western press. All right, then. Let's go for the BBC News.
And it's brought to us by Fidelity Bank. Believe with us.